Weight loss drugs. Is it a new trend or some kind of miracle drug? Ozempic, Mounjaro and Wegovy, the medical answer to weight loss.
They mimic the hormone that we naturally produce when we eat.
A person may feel a great boost in self-esteem as they lose weight, but also it changes their self-perception.
Our nightmare scenario is an anorexic young woman being given the medication, taking this medication and effectively starving herself to death.
I feel like it's a very good thing for the people who need it.
Can these drugs stop overconsumption and help the age-old body issues so many of us carry? I'm Emily Byway, and I'm on a mission to find out whether these weight loss drugs truly are a quick fix. Losing weight is something we've all thought of at least once, and with social media promoting these ever-changing and never-ending body goals, we're always on the hunt to find the quickest way to achieve this beach body we also desire. Weight loss drugs have recently taken the world by storm, but do we really know what they are and why so many people are choosing to use them?
The arrival of getting to the drugs was a very long process for me because I've always struggled with my weight. I have a complex history of trauma, so my coping mechanism was food. I was taken to Weight Watchers at 12. I remember having to go to the GP, being weighed by my GP to be given permission to go to Weight Watchers because I was so young. And looking back at the pictures, I wasn't that big. I look at some of the children that you see on these American shows and I wasn't that big. All through uni, I was on the uni hot football team, hockey team and rugby. I played rugby for the local town. So I was training 2 or 3 times a week, playing matches 4 or 5 times a week, managing my weight. So it was always at a nice even keel of whatever I put in I was able to burn off. So I've got endometriosis and polycystic ovaries, and as I got older the pain from that started to increase. At my heaviest I was 20 stone 12 pounds, which meant mobility was difficult, my ability to play sports decreased, even going to the gym I couldn't do it. But I've always been, I'll fix it my way, I'll fix it physically. I don't want to rely on drugs, I don't want to have surgery, I don't want to do anything medical without trying something physical first, because it's not going to solve the root of it.
If a patient comes in and they talk about the weight loss, or they're desperate to go for the weight loss injection, I'll have a conversation with them first to try and understand what it is that's actually causing the inability to lose the weight. So I think that's initially important when they come in, because you can kind of engage whether it's going to work or not.
Food can be used as a coping strategy, and when these drugs take away food noise, which may be helpful, but also just the ability to eat, a person can lose that coping strategy, and if there's nothing else, if they're not supported in finding other ways of coping with emotions and life, that can actually be really difficult for people.
Today we're on the way to Chippenham to meet James, who is the co-founder of Checkup, which is a weight loss drug company, to talk to him about what they do, why they do it and what the market is currently looking like.
In the UK, roughly 20 million people are obese, living with obesity. The NHS said this year that it would make medication available to 200,000 people. All of those have to have a BMI more than 45 and 4 comorbidities. As I just said, they're too complicated. We wouldn't want to deal with them anyway. They're far too complicated. They need to be dealt with in a hospital setting. So you look at the other end and you say 200,000, 20 million. Most people who could qualify for this will never get this medication on the NHS. The state simply can't afford it. The private providers like ourselves are actually complementary with the NHS.
We've been offering weight management service here at Remedy Health since the very beginning of them being available and regulated with the MHRA. And so we've been offering it for a considerable amount of time, and it certainly has picked up, I think, as the public have grown to know more about these weight loss drugs. Obviously, the media has accelerated that knowledge. So there are 2 weight loss medications in injection form that are licensed for weight loss. So that's semaglutide and tirzepatide. Semaglutide is known as Ozempic, but Ozempic is the licensed product for type 2 diabetes. It's not what we use for weight loss. Instead, the brand name is Wegovy, and tirzepatide is Mounjaro. They are both GLP-1 analogues. What that means is that they mimic the hormone that we naturally produce when we eat. And we produce this hormone from the small intestine. And it's the hormone that slows down gastric emptying and tells us that we're full. So these hormones work, tirzepatide and semaglutide, by slowing down gastric emptying, making us feel fuller for longer, and we're less likely to eat both in between meals but also portion size.
2 years ago, you couldn't even get any of these medications. So there's still a lot of people who are a bit suspicious, unclear, wavering. As I said, there's roughly 2 million people who have taken these medications in the UK. That's only 10% of the eligible population.
When they first came out, I was slightly dubious to begin with, only because it felt like it's like many of the medications though that have been developed. It was made for something else, and as a side effect, it was realised that actually it does this, so therefore why don't we try and market this? So I was slightly dubious in that I thought it was just the pharma companies sort of using it as an ability to make more money. But actually, if you look at the history of the GLP-1, the semaglutide, it has been around for a little while, and it was just in the tablet form before. The injections probably, we heard about it first from the sort of A-listers in Hollywood, didn't we? And that's when it was Rebel Wilson, wasn't it? The first one who was quite obviously had used it and then talked about it as well.
Yeah, but obviously I'm not on it right now, but maybe if I, prescribed it by a doctor, I'd go back on it.
Social media algorithms are constantly evolving based on what we like, what we comment on, what we interact with, and what we search. With more and more people searching for weight loss tips and tricks, more people seem to be posting these videos knowing that they're going to do well. But in this new age of AI, can we really tell what's real versus what's fake? More profiles are posting videos with links to these weight loss drugs. Based on the fact that they think that the viewer will trust them, they're hoping that people will click this link and purchase through them. But what's really important to know about the drugs before you purchase them?
I think it's really, really important, and I can't stress this highly enough, to get the right support when you're being prescribed medication for weight loss. Because of their accessibility, particularly from online sources, whether that's black market or otherwise, they almost have become like shopping for anything, paracetamol or ibuprofen, but they're not. They're serious drugs, and they need to be supported with good clinical input. Not only that, weight loss itself is very complex. There's a lot of psychology around our relationship with food. So these drugs really work best when they're used in combination with behavioural change support and good coaching throughout the process.
So the decision to come to the medication, it was do something or die. I've got type 2 diabetes. I've got high blood pressure, high cholesterol, polycystic ovaries, endometriosis. I've now been diagnosed with fibromyalgia, and I used to play sports 4 or 5 times a week. I've wanted a hysterectomy since I was in my 20s. I'm now at the stage where I've tried everything medical they can do for endometriosis and polycystic ovaries. I've gone through every medical option. They now want me to start retrying the options because I'm that little bit older. And he gave me a medication. And the last time I'd taken it, it made me feel suicidal. And I said, when he said it to me again, I said, I'm not going to take it. And I burst into tears, and he said, what's wrong? And I said, I don't want to take that again. It made me feel suicidal last time I took it. And he, no word of a lie, looked at me and went, at least if you kill yourself, I won't have to give you a hysterectomy. And looked at the nurse and said, can you take the next to go and get weighed and measured? Because his thing for the last 10 years has been, lose weight, you're too overweight, lose weight, and I'll give you a hysterectomy.
Mounjaro or tirzepatide, is what we call a dual agonist. So not only is it GLP-1 analogue, but it also has a secondary effect called GIP, or glucose insulinotropic peptide, and this helps with the way insulin works in the body. So it can enhance weight loss through that secondary benefit, and that's certainly backed up with clinical trials. But we know also that they improve your metabolic health. Now, why is that important? Well, these drugs were initially developed for type 2 diabetes. And as we overeat and in combination age, then we become more and more resistant to the effects of a hormone called insulin. As we overeat, we produce more and more insulin, and our cells become resistant to the effect of that insulin. But meanwhile, damage is being done. So we know that hyperinsulinemia, which is high insulin in the blood, and also this insulin resistance can contribute to heart disease, also to Alzheimer's and dementia, and importantly increases your risk of cancers, which is why, for example, many cancers are at higher prevalence in people that are overweight and obese. So reducing insulin resistance is a secondary benefit for being on these medications.
With all of these extra benefits improving our physical health, what about our mental health? How can these drugs help the issues that can contribute to our weight problems?
Food noise is the persistent, often intrusive thoughts about food, about maybe what you're going to eat later, what you're not allowed to eat if you're on a particular diet, maybe feeling guilt about something you have eaten already, and that can be really overwhelming for people. I think it is intrinsically linked to messages we receive from diet culture and from dieting itself. So when we restrict food, that signals to our brain that, not that it's dangerous, potentially we are in starvation, and so we are wired to then seek out nourishment, which makes us think more and more about food.
The patients that this works the best for are the ones who have something called food noise, and they will just talk about it and they'll say, I just can't get it out of my head.
I can put my hand on my heart and say I've genuinely, I did Weight Watchers, I've done Slimming World. Something had to change. I'm going to die if I don't. So I went on the jab. I've lost 2 stone, slowly but gradually, but I've kind of plateaued. So for the last 6 months, I've stayed quite steadily. I'm about 18.5 stone now. So I've just increased, I'm on the Wegovy, and I've just gone up to the 7.2 milligrams.
There is a dose escalation for these drugs, and we always start people on the lowest dose, irrespective of their size, and then we go up depending on whether they need to or not. Many people don't need to escalate up all the doses to get to the highest dose.
I'm on my 3rd company, which is hilarious, the different companies that you can go with and the different requirements that they need. So I did the generic conditions and everything else, and then they followed up with questions. So somebody there was actually reading, it wasn't just a tick box, which I felt the other 2 were a little bit tick boxy. Yes, you meet our criteria, here we go. Somebody was actually reading it, and I was getting emails from a human saying, can you just clarify, can you take a screenshot of your medications?
Weight loss drugs like Mounjaro and Wegovy are so widely available on the online private market. But I want to know, why is it so important to speak to a clinician or a professional?
We don't prescribe without seeing our clients, and that's usually face-to-face here in the clinic. And that consultation is really important, first of all, to assess the suitability and safety of progressing with GLP-1 analogues, for the individual to understand how they work, how they can minimise side effects, how they can optimise the effectiveness of them, and importantly, what other things they need to be doing to optimise success. I think for the majority of people, they can expect to achieve 3 to 4 kilos weight loss in that first month. Of course, it varies depending on how much people have got to lose and how motivated they are to put the other things in place. But the combination of good, structured, nourishing caloric restriction together with exercise, particularly resistance training, because of the importance of maintaining muscle mass, then most people can expect to lose 3 or 4 kilos consistently each month.
So anybody who's sort of around the age of sort of 40, you'd be saying to them anyway, you need to be thinking about weight exercises and core exercises, because as we go through the hormonal change and menopause, your lack of estrogen, then it makes your risk of losing muscle mass even more. So you should be thinking about doing weight training and should be thinking about doing core exercises anyway, alongside your cardio. So it's all the other things that go along with it. So anybody who's thinking about it, say, come have a conversation. You know, honestly, just half an hour, come and talk it through. Tell me what it is you're looking for. Maybe it's not the right thing for you, and actually probably you need a bit more guidance in something else that might be better for you. I think that's what it is. It's just having conversation with a human, I think, actually.
With more research and more advice coming out regularly, James Tanner, a chef and restaurant owner, told me more about how important nutrition is for weight loss.
Food's massive with regards to weight loss, because you're cooking for yourself, sure, to get nutrition like we've just spoken about, but also it's just for your family and for people around you, and the nutrition is the key thing. Ozempic is a bit of a trend, it is a global known thing, and yes, it does provide results, and then it can affect people in different ways as well, and everything else like that. But as a restaurateur or just a business owner in general, there will be people that will skip the starter. There will be people that will skip the dessert. There will be people that will come in and just want 2 starters, for example, and they won't order that traditional 3-course meal. They won't order 1 big main course, for example. They'll split it up because they're in their minds. Visually, it's a smaller portion size. Obviously, it suppresses your appetite, so you're not going to eat as much. So restaurants have jumped onto that trend to cater for that. I don't think this one's going to go away. I think it's going to be around for years. I think some people, obviously, when we got to be careful when you say trend, because it is obviously very well known. Some people really, really need this to turn their lives around for their well-being, and I think that's brilliant, and it should be used for that. For other people, they just want to try and get that false Instagram body, or they've seen something in a glossy magazine or online, and there's the mental side of it as well, where they just want to, you don't want it to turn around and cause eating disorders in people either as well. It's a double-edged sword, that one, and it's a difficult one, but I don't think it's going to go away.
After talking to James about how restaurants are already adapting to the increasing amount of people on drugs like Manjaro, I want to know why they're being so widely promoted. Social media are picking them up and labelling them as the new holy grail. But what is it about them that's going to keep this market growing?
From a clinician's point of view, these are one of the best tools that we've had in our armoury, if you like, for decades. And I think we'll look back on this era of pharmacological therapy in a very, very different way in the future. And, I've been a clinician now for 40 years, and we've never seen anything like it. And it does pain me to see how these drugs have been commoditised on social media. But those that are not medically qualified, just be really careful about what you say, because these are drugs and they should be treated with the respect that they deserve. But in the right hands, they're amazing.
The Economist magazine had a front cover about 18 months ago, and it had a picture of a Swiss Army knife with GLP-1s written on it, and it said the everything drug. So because what they do on the brain, it's not just weight loss, it's improvements in heart health, it's reductions in cancer rates, it helps relieve sleep apnea, it improves liver function, it improves kidney function, all those things aside from weight loss. We have incredible stories of people's, lives have completely changed because they've lost weight, they feel so much more confident, especially women. We live in a structurally misogynistic society, don't we, where women and their confidence is a massive issue, and losing weight and feeling better about themselves, feeling healthier, feeling more in control, feeling more desired, everything else leaves them feeling happier, better people. That's a nice thing to do.